Tonight, it's a request denied for two companies facing charges following the deadly flash fire at Come By Chance. That update and what's washing up on the shore? The Canadian Coast Guard believes that sticky black oil discovered on West Coast beaches is coming from a stranded cargo ship.
Yes, it's just an awe moment. Gave me goosebumps yesterday when I heard.
This is a critical moment in history.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that Pope's passed.
A historic and unforgettable moment. Students and teachers from this province are in Rome recounting the moment they learned the Pope died.
Cost of living, people are hurting now. I mean, things are cost, way more than they should.
Food insecurities and a place to live and stuff. And yes, I know this is a federal, but the federal will come down to the provincial.
This is a critical election. We have to stand strong as Canadians. We are united as Canadians.
Well, it's another one of your ridings to watch. We take you to Cape Spear, where candidates are hitting the pavement for the last leg of the federal campaign.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We're broadcasting from the St. John's newsroom tonight as our CBC team prepares our television studio for the upcoming Liberal leadership debate. Now let's get to your local news. We begin on the West Coast, where Lark Harbour residents have amped up the call to remove fuel from a grounded container ship. There's concern that residue from the vessel appears to be washing ashore. The MSC Baltic 3 has been stuck near the shoreline for more than 2 months after losing power and drifting into Wild Cove west of Lark Harbour. The Coast Guard has found about half a dozen tar balls in nearby Cedar Cove. The dark, sticky blobs often wash ashore in the wake of oil spills and are about the size of tennis balls. Bruce English with the Canadian Coast Guard says there have been no major spills yet from the Baltic 3, but he believes this residue is coming from the vessel.
I suspect it's been flushed from the ship. We've had a ROV sent down, did an underwater survey, and we didn't see any signs of oil coming out. So these are probably being flushed out from a crack or maybe from the engine room. We're not sure exactly, but being flushed out of the vessel with the heavy weather that we had.
Well, two companies have lost their bids to get more details about the workplace safety charges they're facing. Brea Renewable Fuels and Lorneville Mechanical say they need more specifics from the Crown describing how alleged offenses were committed, arguing those details are necessary to ensure a fair trial. Brea is facing 10 safety-related charges after a fatal explosion at the refinery in Come By Chance 2.5 years ago. One charge against Brea has been dropped. Lorneville is facing 3 counts. Well, this afternoon, the judge rejected those defense applications. Trial dates have been set for the fall. Well, 14 students from Holy Spirit High School in Conception Bay South are witnessing history in Rome this week. The group was visiting the Colosseum when they heard about Pope Francis's death. Now, the CBC's Chris Brown caught up with them in St. Peter's Square today after they paid a visit to the Vatican.
Is pretty incredible. We came to Rome just on basically an EF tour. We get to the Colosseum and we received word that the Pope had passed away. And we didn't know how our plans were going to change or whatnot, but it was an incredible moment to realize we were here and we were a part of it all. This morning we were told that we could possibly only get to the museum, and then we were told, no, you can get to the Sistine Chapel, and then our day went as normal. So it was pretty incredible to be kind of a part of all of this.
Well, impressive, immense. I teach world religions at my school, at our school, and grew up going to church and serving in the church and everything. I'm Anglican, grew up Anglican. So very similar in ways. Yes, it's just an awe moment. Gave me goosebumps yesterday when I heard 2 tour guides speaking back and forth, and then our tour guide turned to us to say that the Pope had passed and what time, and that we were there in the Colosseum. It was incredible.
It's special to be in Rome, where it's Catholic, is Catholicism is a big part of the culture and stuff. I'm just grateful that I was here in this particular time when, the Pope. But yeah, it's kind of sad that the Pope has passed.
And if you could whisper in the ears of the cardinals about what kind of a Pope you think would make the world better, what might you tell them?
That's difficult. Probably one who is accepting of many different perspectives.
This is a critical moment in history, and I guess we're a part of the start of it, and it's kind of exciting to be here during this time. It's sad, but it's exciting too.
Well, a classic Newfoundland and Labrador folk tune is being inducted into Canada's Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Let me fish off Cape St. Mary's, where the hang down sail and the foghorns wave.
All that, of course, is Let Me Fish Off Cape St. Mary's, written by Otto Kelland. Kelland was also an author, a police officer, and model shipbuilder born in Lameline. He died in 2004. Kelland was made a member of the Order of Canada in 1994 at the age of 90. He said the song was inspired by a conversation with a young fisherman who described the homesickness he felt while working off the coast of Boston. To mark this honor, the Irish Descendants are set to perform Kelland's famous ballad at this year's East Coast Music Awards, which will be hosted in St. John's in May. Well, ahead of the federal election, we've been bringing you profiles on this province's 7 ridings. Well, tonight we take you to the newly renamed Cape Spear, which after 10 years is looking for a new leader. Here Now's Julie Israel has this report.
Cape Spear, a newly drawn riding from the former St. John's South Mount Pearl region. It spans from the south end of St. John's, Town of Paradise, Mount Pearl, and Petty Harbour, Maddox Cove. Corey Curtis, father of 2 and a resident of Paradise, when it comes to housing, he believes his party, the Conservatives, can simplify and speed up the process.
Our plan as a Conservative government is to reduce that red tape, ensure that we have, incentives to increase the number of homes built, but ensure that the homes are actually being built as well.
With over 20 years in the offshore industry, he believes regulatory changes and red tape can tie up progress.
The emissions caps discussions, Bill C-69, companies are investing hundreds of millions of dollars in our offshore, and that lack of, I think, industry confidence hampers, the benefits that we could offer before.
When it comes to climate, Curtis says demand for oil will not stop, so better to be in the driver's seat.
We have an opportunity, to really be a world power. Like, we have so many resources that we can offer, whether it's the fishery, whether it's the offshore sector, whether it's wind energy or whatnot, minerals, and I don't think we've exploited it. I don't think we've done a good enough job of promoting what Newfoundland and Labrador can do.
Liberal candidate Tom Osborne agrees in part.
We still need planes, we still need ships, we still need vehicles, we still need plastics. Until those things are eliminated, we need oil. If we're not producing our oil, we're using dirty oil.
He wants to boost the province's reach. His party has promised to cut ferry passenger fees by half.
Marine Atlantic is our Trans-Canada Highway link. We need to ensure that that is a reliable service and it's an affordable service, not only for getting products to Newfoundland and Labrador, but for tourism.
Osborne's platform promises center around affordability and housing, and he believes a strong stance will be needed to weather Donald Trump's trade war.
The biggest singular issue right now is the threat on our sovereignty and the tariffs, which will impact the cost of goods. There is a threat on Canada's sovereignty. Every province in Canada is going to be impacted. So this is a critical election. We have to stand strong as Canadians.
Disability rights is a priority for Brenda Walsh, the candidate representing the New Democrats.
I ran the last 2 provincial elections. I always want to bring awareness to disabilities, and I find that there's nobody really talking about it in the election, but there's like over 30% of people have disabilities, whether it's in a chair or it's a mental disability.
Walsh, who uses a power wheelchair to get around, has experienced how difficult that can be for those with disabilities.
I am so thankful that I have a Go Bus. I truly am, because I wouldn't be able to get around. But there's so much more that needs to be done. I would love every little area, if we could have, that would make it more accessible for a lot of people that are in these small towns.
Walsh wants to see more money go to co-op housing and for the feds to foot the bill.
Again, it has to start, and it should start from the federal to give the money and say this is a good thing to have, because everybody's crying out about housing right now. Everybody.
Walsh says Canadians need the New Democrats to hold the leading party to account and to continue pushing for improved health and dental coverage. Also on the ballot, Caleb Tingate for the Green Party and Mike Peach for the Animal Protection Party. That's 5 fresh candidates to consider as the new face of Cape Spear. Julia Israel, CBC News, Cape Spear.
Well, from the federal election campaign to some provincial politics now, just under 14,000 people will have a chance to vote in the Liberal leadership race between MHA's John Abbott and John Hogan. Now, party officials confirmed those numbers today. Beginning Thursday, registered Liberals can cast a vote for the candidate of their choice, either by phone or online. The 2-day leadership convention will take place at the Jag Sound House in St. John's, with a winner to be declared about mid-afternoon on Saturday, May 3rd. 11 Liberal MHAs have publicly sided with Hogan, while 6 have endorsed Abbott. But all 40 districts will have an equal influence on the outcome, with 1,000 points up for grabs in each district. Liberals will soon elect a new leader and your 15th premier of the province. Will it be John Abbott or John Hogan?
With my experience and calm and steady hand,
I have the experience, the knowledge, and certainly the commitment.
On Wednesday, April 23rd, Here and Now will present a live 40-minute debate as both contenders present their pitch on why they should lead the province. Well, it was a typical RDF windy day in St. John's, but it didn't stop City Council from marking Earth Day with a flag raising. Have a look.
City of St. John's is here to celebrate Earth Day, and people right across the planet basically are celebrating today. And people can go to earthday.org and see all of the communities right across the planet that are engaging and celebrating our environment and how it supports us.
We ready?
It's all about education, and we're also really, truly encouraging people to take personal responsibility. But everybody has a part to play in keeping our city not only clean, but also thinking about smart consumer choices, what we buy, what ends up in the landfill. It just keeps the conversation going, and we don't want to see, climate action fall off the radar.
So the Stewardship Association, we work across the island helping municipalities identify these really cool, special, natural wildlife habitats that they have. If an area is designated as conservation, it has certain development regulations, it has certain land use zoning applied to it, there are certain discretionary uses that limit development on the land, and that's what we're trying to encourage: sustainable development. You can't build a wetland, you can't engineer a wetland. Once you put shovels in the ground or excavators, you're not going to be able to recreate that wetland. It takes 10,000 years for a meter of peat to build up. 10,000 years, we don't have that time. We can't engineer 10,000 years worth of ecosystem services. So that's a real easy answer.
We're here to kind of start spreading word and letting people know that we're working to start a private IVF clinic, that plans are well underway, and that's the plan for the future.
So it'll allow patients to be able to access IVF here in the province. It'll probably service most of the things that we do. There'll be some still smaller, more complex things that may need to travel out of province.
Well, it's a big step forward for people seeking fertility treatments. Those 2 doctors hope to open a new clinic within the next 18 months.
Well, the weather over the next couple of days is going to be fairly quiet tonight. We've got an unsettled day tomorrow, and then those temperatures are definitely going to be on a roller coaster as we head through to the weekend. I'll break it all down for you coming up.
So here's what we've gathered from talking to local residents.
I spoke with a renter who's facing eviction this fall.
It is not for the weak of stomachs. What does it mean for you to be able to give that advice and to know that you've helped? Don't look down.
If this is something that you didn't know about, let me tell you.
Heather Gillis, CBC News, Happy Valley Goose Bay.
St. John's.
Corner Brook.
Shaji, Innu First Nation.
Grand Falls, Windsor.
New West Valley, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Well, people in Newfoundland and Labrador may soon no longer have to leave home to receive IVF treatments. A pair of fertility specialists in St. John's are preparing to open a private IVF clinic, the first in the province. They sat down with Jen White, the host of the St. John's Morning Show, to talk about the need for this in vitro clinic now.
Dr. Deanna Murphy, Dr. Sean Murphy, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So I wanted to let you guys break the news. What are you here to share today?
Well, I guess, we're here to kind of start spreading word and letting people know that we're working to start a private IVF clinic, that plans are well underway, and that's the plan for the future.
That's really exciting.
It is, yeah. I think we've been waiting a long time, and patients in particular have been waiting a long time to see something like this happening, but, it is moving forward, so here we are.
Deanna, do you have any details yet about when it'll be opening, what it's going to be called, any of those things that you can share with us yet?
We don't really have a name per se yet. That still involves some discussion. The hope would be to get through the process of having it set up, hopefully within the next 18 months, I would say. Maybe it may take a little bit longer.
Can you just run through for us how this is going to change, what kind of treatments that fertility patients in the province can avail of?
So it'll allow patients to be able to access IVF here in the province. It'll probably service most of the things that we do. There'll be some still smaller, more complex things that may need to travel out of province, but those happen every couple of years generally. It'll allow access to egg preservation for patients, either for social or medical reasons. It'll also allow couples that, have been struggling for years to avail of IVF where travel was kind of not something that was in their cards for them. So I think it'll be very beneficial. It'll also cut down on the time that people miss from work when they're having to go through this process as well.
And this too comes on the heels of the announcement from government last month that patients here can avail of a $20,000 fund to help pay for things. And now, I guess ideally it's going to be better for patients since they won't have to travel once this new clinic is open. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think the bursary also will be very helpful for allowing patients to avail of the service here as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a kind of big win for patients, and hopefully with the addition of a new clinic here where they don't need to travel. I mean, it's still quite costly to do IVF even when they have to travel. And some people don't have insurance to cover medication. There are other complicating things, time missed from work. Some people take unpaid leave. Plus we have patients that we service throughout the province. So patients from Labrador, the West Coast, Central, who will still need to, avail of hotels and flights. And so I think it'll just be overall very beneficial with the bursary and having IVF here.
Can we dive into a little bit more about what it's going to mean for your current and even your future fertility patients, about the difference of having a clinic here versus the current system where they have to travel away to get these services?
I think this is a huge shift for them. I think this is groundbreaking. A big part of the difficulty in going through the IVF process is having to leave your support system, pack up your gear, leave sometimes your family and friends behind, and travel for the better part of 2 weeks. Going through something as difficult as IVF, to do that without your support system in a city you may have never been in, you don't know your way around, locked in a hotel room for 10, 12 days. To be able to do that now, just to commute from your home, or hopefully coming into St. John's from away from a minimal amount of time frame, I think that's going to make a world of difference.
Are you excited to get started?
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and telling us all about it. I'm so excited for you both. And I know it's going to make a world of difference to a lot of patients in this province.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to go, but we're moving in the right direction.
When I first started in politics in the early 2000s, and I'm not sure if you were around then, but at that time, debt was a big deal. Like, how do you manage the debt?
Has Trump made it more acceptable to spend because people are worried?
Well, stay with us. Here now is Peter Cowan and his political panel return to talk about the record turnout in the advance polls, as well as the power of good old-fashioned door knocking. Liberals will soon elect a new leader and your 15th premier of the province. Will it be John Abbott or John Hogan?
With my experience and calm and steady hand,
I have the experience, the knowledge, and certainly the commitment.
On Wednesday, April 23rd, Here and Now will present a live 40-minute debate as both contenders present their pitch on why they should lead the province. Well, time to check in with Ashley now, who is down in the studio as we're getting ready for that debate tomorrow. A nasty old day out there today, but how's the forecast looking, Ashley?
Yeah, it certainly was not very nice. Some rain to start the day, windy conditions as well. But before we get to the forecast, I had to share this photo with you. Check out these rare snow rollers that were spotted in Happy Valley Goose Bay. And these only form when the conditions are just right. So first you need a base layer of hard snow or ice, and that's the case here. And you top that with a surface layer of some slightly wet snow, and it's going to be sticky enough to hold together, but not that wet that it clings to the ground. And then when it comes to wind, the wind has to be strong enough to get the snow rolling, but gentle enough to keep them from falling apart. So definitely a nice rare scene there in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Thank you so much to Tony for sharing that great shot with them. You can see them there. They're just rolling gently down the ice there. Certainly some snowy weather out there across a good chunk of Labrador, even parts of the West Coast, through parts of Central yesterday as well. But very different story here in the East. Generally drying out now, which is quite nice. We have a temperature, though, on the cool side, around 2 degrees, with those winds generally out of the north-northwest around 37 kilometers per hour. So those winds have come down, but still quite gusty, though. Really anywhere along the northeast coast, gusting anywhere from 30 to as much as 60 kilometers per hour. Top gust at the moment in Bonavista at 65 kilometers per hour. And you can see those temperatures are definitely cooler in that northwest flow as well, anywhere from about 1 to as much as 5 degrees for St. Anthony. You get away from that, though, 11 degrees in Deer Lake, 10 in Stephenville, and Corner Brook here sitting at 9 degrees. Even Happy Valley Goose Bay topping out at about 8 degrees this afternoon so far. So looking at the satellite and radar, there are a few showers and even some flurries popping up for the southwestern corner of the province. These are not forecasted, so they shouldn't last too long as we head through tonight. In fact, most of the evening should be fairly quiet. But if I zoom out a little bit, there is still some more action happening around the maritime provinces right now. But again, not anticipating that this will amount to much as we head through the evening hours. In fact, most should see a fairly quiet evening tonight. Well, we may see a few flurries still, though, up across parts of Lab West. But other than that, that should be it. Our temperatures tonight are going to be fairly chilly in low-lying areas, northern peninsula even, down to the minus single digits, otherwise hovering near or even a couple of degrees above zero. Now, the winds along the northeast coast of the island are still going to be fairly brisk tonight, with those northwesterlies sticking around upwards of about 50 kilometers per hour. But other than that, light winds to the north and even into Lab West. You're looking at your southeasterly winds gusting somewhere between 20 to as much as 40 kilometers per hour. The best chance of some light snow again will be in Lab City, where you will hover around the 0 degree mark. The rest of Labrador, you will hang out around -2 or even -3 overnight. By the time we get into tomorrow morning, we'll start to see some more unsettled weather for the southwestern corner of the island. Labrador, at least in the west anyway, some light snow, maybe even a few showers in the mix there as well. And then most of the day tomorrow should actually be fairly quiet. We may even see some sunshine to start, but the clouds will be on the increase through central, eastern, and even western portions of the island as the day goes on. And then we're also looking at the chances of some showers or flurries. Now, the northern peninsula, southeastern Labrador, it's going to be fairly quiet for you. You should stay dry through the day, but that precipitation as we head into the evening and early Thursday morning will continue for a good chunk of the island. Even into, like I said, into Thursday morning. Temperatures are going to vary depending on where you are. We're going to see those winds shift from northwesterlies to more southeasterlies, and temperatures should stay fairly mild, anywhere from 5 to 8 degrees in the east central areas of the island. You may even see, and the interior may even see, those temperatures bump up into the double digits with some of that sunshine. Your showers will likely move in late day, and then northern peninsula even between 2 and about 4 degrees as your daytime highs tomorrow afternoon. And then across Labrador, most will be sitting somewhere between 3 and even 7 degrees as the daytime highs. Fairly quiet, light winds as well towards the coast. And then other than, again, that few flurries with the chance of a few showers in the mix there, just as your temperatures hover around 4 degrees through the day, that will generally continue. Now, as we head into the next, at least towards the weekend, temperatures are going to start to warm up. We'll see double-digit temperatures in the forecast for parts of the island, and some quiet weather and also a little bit of unsettled weather. But I'll break it all down for you coming up a little later.
Well, it was a busy weekend as voters showed up in record numbers to advance polls. On the first day, which was Good Friday, the numbers were up 36% from the last election. There were long lineups at polling stations in this province as people waited to cast their votes. So what does this say about the election? We've got our political pundits here to share their insights. Scott Sims was a Liberal MP. Amanda Will has been a federal and provincial NDP staffer. And we've got Eugene Manning, who is a Conservative political consultant. So, Eugene, let's start with you. What do you make of the numbers that we were seeing at the polls here?
I think, first of all, it's great to see people participate in the democratic process. Overall, usually people tell you that higher turnouts mean that people are desperate for change and chasing it. Obviously, I'm biased. I'd like to agree with that. I think, though, you know, Good Friday was a holiday. A lot of people were home. It also shows the level of interest people are having in this election, and they really want to hear their voices heard. So whether you can lean into it one way or the other, that's a good question. I'd like to think the Conservative machine is stronger and got their vote out, but I'm sure my panelists might differ on that.
Okay, Scott, that idea of change, should the Liberals be worried that people are motivated for change?
Yeah, I think so. On the surface, yes, it looks like there could be that type of change as in government structure change. The Trump factor has played quite considerably in this campaign. I never in my life would I ever think that someone, American president, would be saying the things that he's saying about taking over another country, in the case of Greenland or Canada. So people are riled up big time. So what is change? Who's the agent of change? Is Pierre Poilievre the agent of change to do a couple things, improve the economy, but to handle Trump, which is huge? But Carney seems to be moving in on the ground where people are more comfortable with that type of attitude. So that could be fueling things at the advanced polls. Advanced polls for us were a big strategy, not the biggest one, because in federal politics, as you know, in federal politics, the polls are open all the time, really. You just got to go to a particular place and do that. But the advanced polls with this holiday weekend could be a factor too.
Amanda, I want to ask you here because you've got the Liberals are really motivated with Trump. You've got the Conservatives who are really motivated with change. What about the NDP? Does it risk squeezing them out in this?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, we're very motivated to get, certainly in St. John's East, where I was helping out this weekend, to get Mary Shortall elected. And seeing a lot of people come to the polls could mean a number of things. We also just had the two leadership debates as well, so people got to see, what each leader was saying. And I think after that, you notice that certainly Jagmeet got a little bump in the polls there. And I mean, I think people were going, like, who do we really want?
The interesting thing, though, is a lot of these people were casting their votes before the full costed platforms were even out. The Liberals came out with theirs on Saturday. We saw the Conservatives with theirs out today. Didn't stop people from going out and voting. Have the platforms become less important to voters? What do you think?
My thought on that, I was thinking about this the other day. There are two issues that have really rescinded back into a place where people are, it's not top of mind anymore. The first one is the environment. The second one is debt. When I first started in politics in the early 2000s, and I'm not sure if you were around then, but at that time, debt was a big deal. Like, how do you manage the debt?
Has Trump made it more acceptable to spend? Because people are worried. You know, what happens if tariffs mean that economies, you know, that we need to have some money available, the support programs like we saw during COVID. You know, so has Trump made it easier for parties to be able to say, look, I'm going to need to still run up deficits?
We got to have something in reserve in case, you know, the you-know-what falls out of her. Because what happens then is that, you know, we put ourselves in a position where we're at the mercy of these bond rating services and debt services people, and they're all international. They're outside of Canada. So now we've lost our own way through.
If someone soon doesn't tackle the debt situation, and come back to your point, Scott, like, we're just barely keeping our head above water, and it seemed like our issues were front and center for 2 years. Trump comes on scene, and now everyone has reverted back to the issue of Trump and the 51st state, which are huge issues. But also what's got cast aside is, look, it's still hard to come up with a down payment. It's still hard the cost of living is still there. There's all these issues.
But I think as well, like when people are talking about debt, I think we just came through the pandemic years where people understood that money had to be actually spent in order for people themselves not to go into worse debt personally. So there were some very good things that happened, and people have seen, like governments, debt is not their only business, right? Governments are here to have good public services for people, and that is why they have to manage the debt. They have to manage it well, and that is what I think, certainly what the NDP would do and have talked about, but I think that is what people are seeing.
But Amanda, which people?
Which people?
Which people? I mean, we talk about debt and we increase our debt payments every year. You talk about it's not government's only business, it's their big business. And I think it's 60 billion this year. Yeah, so you're not paying for healthcare. I'm not paying for healthcare. My children are paying for healthcare. Is who's paying for healthcare. And they're the ones that are going to have
to taxes? Is that what you're saying to me? Because I think we're all paying for taxes.
Yes, and that does not cover the level of services that we provide. And I think there's been a real disconnect, especially in the past 10 years, where people are not equating their tax dollars with the services that we get. We get more than our tax dollars pay for, provincially, federally, and otherwise. And it's time for, hopefully, all I can say about current is about... Well, where did the 60 billion come from?
That's not, I'm not talking about what you're saying, that people don't understand where their taxes are going. I think people very well know where their taxes are going and what they're not getting, because we're also improperly or not taxing people that we should be taxing, which would be people holding lots of money in offshore accounts, and also the people who are making our groceries go up, which are the Loblaws and others of the world.
When we come back, parties still put a lot of efforts into knocking on your door. Why it matters in an age of information.
over there. Is this good?
Yeah, a little bit more. That felt good.
Therapeutic almost.
There's a wrestling ring down there. What's that about?
This is wild.
At this point in the campaign, the odds are good someone from a political party has knocked on your door. Even with websites and Facebook and ads on radio and TV, political campaigns still put a lot of effort into getting out to people's doors and gathering some key information about them. Our political veterans have done a lot of door knocking in their day. Amanda Will, Eugene Manning, and Scott Sims. So Scott, as a candidate, you spent 17 years where you had to knock on doors. Why is that so important in a campaign?
It's important because you get to identify the vote. So the whole point is you find out what they're voting for. If they're voting for your party, you want to call them on election day to get them out, because some people are just not as motivated as maybe we are to get out and vote. So therefore you have to remind them, since you're supporting us, get out there. The other part is, I found, for me, it gives candidates a very good sense of what's happening in the riding, because you're not out in a public place. You're not holding a town hall where people are not as forthcoming because their friends and relatives are around. But when you get them on the doorstep, well, that's a different story altogether, isn't it? Because now they can be who they are with you on a personal level. It's difficult to do federally.
People think it's a persuasion factor where you're trying to convince people to vote for your candidate. In reality, it's more data collection.
Exactly.
So you volunteers out there, so you want to know if the person's voting, if they have friends or family who's in the household. So now it's mostly on your phone. It's with apps and software. It used to be old sheets and pen and paper, and you still see that, especially in some areas where cell service coverage is not great. And you're just recording. Yes, they're a supporter. Yes or no, they're not. There's 3 voters in the household, so you can follow up on election day. Other information you might get is someone will say, geez, my husband, I wish he could vote, but he's offshore next week. Well, that person gets tagged with a special ballot. I know in my world, it's a yellow. You come back, you fill out a form, your special ballot coordinators take that on, you get a phone call. And, you know, you're playing with the margins. A lot of people are going to vote anyway, so it's like, 4 to 5% is what they say nationally, what it matters. I think it matters more here in the province. But it's that 4 or 5% in that ground game in a close race, which is really going to tell the difference.
Amanda, I'm curious, how much of a sense do you accurately get from knocking on a door? Because I feel like in Newfoundland and Labrador, people are very polite, that if you show up and you're with a certain campaign, they might not necessarily want to come out and directly say they're not going to vote for you. What's your experience been?
Well, my experience, I've knocked on a lot of doors in my time as a candidate, as well as working for other candidates. And I find you get the most real response actually by knocking on a door, especially if that person answers, because there's been a lot of change over the past little while, but people don't actually even come to their doors, unfortunately, unless, and I feel that once they do actually want to have a conversation with you, and you really get a sense of where they might be. The way that you go out and knock on doors, you can do as much as you can with as many volunteers. There are less also people coming out to volunteer.
Dramatically. From the late 90s, early 2000s, to now, there's been a noticeable large difference of the people who show up to volunteer on campaigns.
Why is that?
People are more prone to volunteer for other local issues, like raising money for charities, that sort of thing. But for some reason, and maybe some academic can do a large study on this, but it has plummeted.
I think it is also to do with, like, for example, in 2015, there were 2 promises. One was that we'd have weed legalized, and the other was that we'd have electoral reform. Not done, exactly. And that is something that is shown, electoral reform, that actually evens the field across the country and around the world. It allows more women to get elected, more visible minorities to get elected, and people were really excited about it, and young people were super excited about it, and they were upset that it never happened, and it just added to a cynicism that people feel about politics.
I mean, talking about volunteers, one, they're worth their weight in gold. Good volunteers, I'm sure we can all name a few, and when they pop up on another campaign, as lately as this week, the emails internally go around saying, what's he doing over there? And that's a huge, if they're a good phone, the people who are good on the phones, people who are the good door knockers. But there's nothing annoys a campaign more when someone new to the system comes in and they say, go knock a door and they're like, well, I'm more of a senior strategist. Like, no, there's no strategy on this level of a campaign. I mean, there is strategy, but it's knock doors, make phone calls. Everyone wants to come in and be at the top of the totem pole, but it becomes an issue of favors going back through for years.
When I first started campaigning, there were a lot of times, more often than not, to hear, my father was a Liberal, grandfather was a Liberal, I'm a Liberal, and conservative PCs could say the same thing. Not so much nowadays. People are not party loyal just because of their upbringing or they've always been that way. More people are now switching party alliances easily, and a lot of it is leader-based and issue-based as well, like the issue that Amanda brought up earlier. That's a big thing, because when I first started campaigning, people would go through the list and say, Buckins, and say, okay, that person, oh, they always vote PC, don't bother. Don't know anymore. And one of the biggest factors that caused that was the ABC campaign, that we were finding that a lot of provincial PCs were now voting Liberal, and in latter years it was the other way around. So that's another thing. They're not as party loyal anymore, so that depletes the volunteering.
Okay, well, thanks so much, all three of you, for a great discussion.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
Liberals will soon elect a new leader and your 15th premier of the province. Will it be John Abbott or John Hogan?
With my experience and calm and steady hand,
I have the experience, the knowledge, and certainly the commitment.
On Wednesday, April 23rd, Here and Now will present a live 40-minute debate as both contenders present their pitch on why they should lead the province. Two brothers from St. John's have found a way for lawyers to use artificial intelligence to save hours when sifting through cases. It's called Hadamard, named after a quantum computing method. Nathaniel and Thomas Roberts started the app last year, and they were in our St. John's Morning Show studios to explain it all to Morning Show host Jen White.
So in Canada, we're in a common law system, which means that all our law is or not all our law, but there's judge-made law. So if you're building a legal argument, you've got to look at past decisions that are similar to yours. And there's millions of these decisions. And so lawyers have to sift through, the 2 million of them and find the 3 that's relevant to their situation. And the way they do this is with very traditional databases and Boolean searches. So with Hadamard, you can just ask a straight-up English language question, and you get a response with citations that you can go then check and read the case and then read cases that case cites. So Hadamard kind of gets you started on your legal research.
We're big fans of ChatGPT, and we were showing it to our mom, who does a lot of legal research, and she asked it a case law research question, and it was completely wrong and sort of made up a couple cases, which is a common problem you hear about. And so we were sort of inspired. How can we bring the same great experience like us common folk have with AI to the legal profession in a sort of accurate and reliable way?
You're staring at this legal database, and you need to figure out the complex series of tags that you'll need to enter to find the case that's relevant to you. We still really need the kind of human analysis of the law and that kind of reasoning ability. I don't see AI doing that in the near future, and if AI can do that, then what can't it do? So it's not even these specific fields. It's like everybody will be, worried.
All right, time to check in with Ashley and the long-range forecast. So what's in store for us later in the week?
A little bit of everything. The forecast looks a little bit unsettled as we head into our Thursday. Let's take a look at what's going on. So this little bit of a disturbance will move through starting Wednesday evening, or continue, I should say, through Wednesday evening. And then as we get into early Thursday morning, looking at the potential for some snow or rain, depending on where you are across southern areas of the island towards the coast. This will likely fall as rain. And then further east, across the Avalon, we could be talking about some showers to start, and then potentially this ending as some snow in the afternoon on Thursday. As the winds shift, temperatures are actually going to be quite cool for the Avalon with those northerly winds. Temperatures should only reach about 1 degree through the day, so there is a good chance that we will see some wet snow. Now you head through central, the west coast, temperatures much warmer, between 5 and 9 degrees, again with some cloudy periods. Most of the activity along southern areas of the island will be early in the day. And then for the northern peninsula, you're looking at temperatures hovering around 3 degrees. And then for Labrador, really a big range of temperatures for you as well. In the west and the north, mid-single digits, and then otherwise between 5 to 10 degrees for the rest of the big land through the day. Now, as we head into Friday, fairly quiet again to start the day. It looks like it should be cloudy. Northern Peninsula, southeastern Labrador, you may be seeing a few showers to start the day. Nothing significant by any means, just a little bit of unsettled weather. That will work its way towards potentially the west coast and then even through parts of central as we head into the afternoon on Friday. Then we start to see some clearing. That will be the story up across a good chunk of the western portion of Labrador, starting late in the day and then continuing through the first part of Saturday. Overall, temperatures will be between 3 and 5 degrees, so really not moving a whole lot except across the island on Friday. Temperatures will bump back up again for the Avalon, hovering around 6 degrees, anywhere from 9 to 11 through parts of central, even the rest of eastern Newfoundland. And then the west coast and northern peninsula, your daytime highs will sit between 5 and 6 degrees. Now, as we take a look at the long-range forecast, Friday into Saturday, At least for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland, looks like it should just be generally cloudy with some sunny breaks there, but between 4 and 6 degrees. By the time we get into Sunday, those temperatures are going to warm up a little bit. We should be hovering around 9 degrees, but it is going to come with some rain. Now, we will see some showers late in the day on Friday. Saturday, even you're looking at showers or flurries as well, but the best chance of flurries will be overnight. And then for Sunday, around 9 degrees with some rain. Same thing for eastern Newfoundland, a little cooler though, between 6 and 9 degrees, and really dropping Sunday night around -3. Now for Labrador, definitely a roller coaster, up to 10 degrees, down to 4 degrees, and then back up by the time we get into Sunday. And then for Western Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures between 5 to 7 degrees and a little nicer as we get towards the weekend. Our weather photo is taken in the Tablelands. Now it's still winter, very much winter. Thank you so much for that photo, Fred. And if you have any weather photos, we'd love to see them. You can do that by sharing them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Does look like winter. Thank you so much, Ashley, and thank you, Fred, for that wonderful photo. And thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Hope you can join us again tomorrow night. It'll be a bit of a special night. We have 15 minutes of local news, and then we'll shift gears for a live debate. Liberal leadership contenders John Hogan and John Abbott will be in our studio. We'll have a 40-minute commercial-free debate. We have podiums set up there on either side of the news desk in our studio. About 14,000 registered Liberals will begin voting starting on Thursday, the day after this debate. So hopefully this debate will help some of them, make up their minds on who will be the next Liberal leader and the 15th Premier of the province. So hope you can join us then. That'll be a 40-minute live debate. We will have a bit of local news to start, and then we'll be shifting over to that debate. So hope you can join us. Thank you so much for watching tonight.